We have established a wide range of programs designed to help particularly those without jobs who are bearing the sharpest pains of the long recession. Enterprise allowances. These encourage unemployed people to set up in business by paying £40 a week for their first year to offset their loss of unemployment benefit. Pilot schemes were set up in 5 local areas in early 1982. The response has been very encouraging. It should help some 25,000 unemployed people to set up in business. We shall be monitoring the scheme closely, and I hope it will show a continuing benefit to those concerned and to the whole economy.
Let's get outline and some colouring. Well, I done my first tattoo, I done with a pin on myself, like, you know. Then I had one done professionally. Suddenly realised that they weren't all that hard to draw, like, you know. I'd never been able to draw before in my life, so I just drawed one. Thought, too bad, draw another one. And carried on from there, like, you know. I was working in a forge down Gannington's. So, the redundancy come up, like, you know, and I thought, see if I can set up on my own tattooing, like, you know. I found out one supplier, which was a load of rubbish, to tell you the truth, and I ended up making a mess of a few people's arms. And I met another bloke, and he was one of the rare ones that broke away from the tradition of the closed shop and actually told me something about tattooing, like, you know. It's picking up. When the summer comes, like, it should pick up. I should make a living out of it, if not a fortune, you know, so. It's another satisfied customer. I hope.
Well, this handwriting reveals that the person who has actually written it is very kind and warm and loving, that because of the extreme right slope of the writing, that they need the company of others a great deal of the time. The spacing is important because it reveals the writer's attitude towards the past and the future. They're a very future-looking individual in that what's past is past and it's today and tomorrow that are important. Because of the inconsistency of the right-hand margin, it also shows that the person who's written it is also inconsistent. The spacing between the lines reveals that the writer is a very cultured person, but also needs a lot of freedom at the same time. I heard about the enterprise allowance on television and decided that I would apply for it, although I didn't think I would get anywhere with it. Graphology is regarded with a great deal of suspicion and awe by a lot of people. So many people think it's an occult science, when of course it's got nothing to do with that at all. And I expected they'd want somebody from industry or from a shop or something like that. I thought graphology was perhaps a little way out for what they wanted.
What sort of customers will you be looking for then?
Mostly people in industry themselves, but who are on the personnel side. People who would be interviewing people for other posts. Depending on the amount of work and the depth of analysis they want, I would charge something like 1% of the total salary to be paid to that person to be appointed.
And you're quite sure about these, obviously?
Oh, yes, because I checked and I double-checked, and all the factors are there.
Because as I explained before, the first analysis is it's talking about a person's job. The second one, obviously, it's to do with the fact of whether we employ somebody in the capacity of sales manager. But it's only in the last 6 months that we've used Karen's abilities. Having a company employing about 40 people, we do supply furniture nationally. It is important that we employ the right people in certain very responsible positions.
And unfortunately, in the first sample of writing, all these things were found. There's no disputing it. The man has got a drink problem. He is very unstable, and for the position that he holds, I would question it.
We've got a problem, basically, and the gent we've got to talk to him a lot about this.
Have you actually shown him that report?
It's imperative. We're not holding any of these in secret against anybody. As soon as we speak to them, we say, yes, look, we've had this analysis done. Sometimes it's it causes some concern with the individual, and other times it causes outright hoots of laughter. I mean, there one about 3 months ago that you did, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, the old, what is it you said? The tale of the G?
Oh, yes.
I explained that to him. Well...
I don't think many people realise just how much you can
I wonder if his wife
tell.
knows, by the way. Oh, God.
Well, when I left college, there was no prospects of getting a job, so I decided to see about becoming an artist. On the dole, I was getting about £23 a week, and on the scheme, you get £40 a week, but you have to pay national insurance out of that. The small painting with the yellow field and tree, that'd be about £25. So up to the large one, the States, the seaside village, that'd be £45, £50. But I put a lot of time into the paintings. I mean, I think I've got the skill to survive, yeah, but it's basically comes down to selling them, you know. I think I've got the skill, but it's whether they'll sell or not.
Well, basically, we manufacture high-class cycle frames for touring, for racing, and anybody who wants anything special. Well, I served my time as a toolmaker during the war. Afterwards, in 1950, I started a retail lightweight cycle shop where I started to make frames to sell in my own shop. So from there, I went into partnership in a firm making slightly more expensive frames, but unfortunately the partnership didn't work out, and so I finished up on the dole, and here I am. Obviously, at my age, I could have, if I wished to, I could have coasted to retirement, but I felt I'd still got a good few years left, so I decided I would have a bash on my own. And having done that, I searched for premises and managed to find these at a reasonable sort of rent. And I had to start right from scratch. There wasn't a bench in the place, and chasing around finding all the equipment I needed, or making the equipment, because most of the equipment you can't buy, you have to make it yourself. Consequently, it was 3 months before I even made a bike frame, and during those 3 months, that £40 a week was heaven sent, believe you me. First of all, of course, I was by myself, and I was making just a few a week. And now, I have one skilled man and one boy, which I'm training up. We make about 20 a week now, but that will soon be, I think, 25 or 30, we're hopeful. But one of my problems, of course, is finding skilled labour. I'm having to take young men in and train them right from scratch.
Bromwich used to be the home of the cycle industry. I can't believe there aren't skilled men available.
Believe me, at the turn of the century, there were thousands employed in the cycle industry in Coventry. It was the centre of the world as far as cycles are concerned. But now, I think in Coventry there's about, I should think, 4 people that can build a cycle frame, and I know every one of them. For a dream of mine, I've got about 5 more years working life left in me. I would like to leave a little legacy to Coventry, if I could, by way of a larger factory employing quite a number of people. They say, well, that's the factory that Tom Bromwich started.
Hello, this is Posh Force, mobile canine beautician. I'm sorry I'm mobile, which most people aren't. They're in a shop where a lot of people, if they're out at work, they've obviously got other things to do, so it's handy if I can go to them, then they can get on with whatever they're doing. If I was out of work, I'd got a skill, at my hands, and it was just going to waste. I was a bit dubious about the whole idea, I must admit, to start with, but if it carries on growing like it is, then I have to employ someone else to train up to trim the dogs. I'm just going to go from strength to strength, hopefully.
Excuse me. Well, I always wanted to do something to do with clothes or art or something along those lines, and there was nothing available for me in Burton.
I was on a fashion and design course at college, and I met Trudy while I was on that course and left and went into business with her.
They're not very cheap, any clothes that you can buy. They're quite expensive for what they are. They're not very originally designed, and they're not very readily available either. They're not very, high fashion at all. So we thought what we'd like to do is sort of bridge that gap as far as we could and see how it would go from there. We realised we'd need some financial backing, so we went to the bank, up to the bank manager.
I had pink hair, Trudy had blue hair. We were sort of leather miniskirts and yellow jumpers and stuff.
Very embarrassing indeed.
We didn't think we had a chance of getting a loan, but...
he opened the door and sort of went, oh, you can come in then.
Stood back in amazement.
I feel that it's now time that you looked a little bit closer at your marketing techniques.
We've got an accountant in Burton, they're very helpful. They call us in regularly, make sure that we're not overspending.
A definite shortcoming in the current arrangements, and I think we need to restructure them. I see that your main supplier is Belvoir Fabrics at this moment in time. Now, what sort of fabrics are you buying from them? Are you buying mainly all of one type?
No,
or are you varying?
we buy whole big bundles of a lot, don't we? We buy some various patterns, colours, and all the rest, just bolts of them, and they make it up into one big batch and then deliver it to us.
Yes.
My parents bought me a shed, a big fat shed to go out in the back garden, and they've insulated it, heated it, the lot, for an actual workshop for me.
Are you going to help me with that pink coat?
Yeah, what needs doing to it?
Well, the fleece stretched when I ironed it.
We stage fashion shows, and what happens is, after a lot of them, people come backstage and ask us to make this or that or the other, so we get a lot of orders from that. And by that you build up regular customers and clientele who will phone you up and say, I want a dress for next week, can you do it? Yes, I can do it, and, I can deliver them on my bike or whatever. Our stuff is, I think it's wearable in the sense that you can wear it with a lot of jewellery and backcomb your hair and wear really silly makeup and stuff, and it looks outrageous. But there again, if you just sling an old jumper on top and, your favourite shoes, you can wear it out shopping or something, which is very useful, obviously, for people who are unemployed to buy it.
Both of us were unemployed for approximately 2 years altogether, and we realised the problems of buying clothes when you're unemployed.
I didn't think you were ready, Karen. I thought you'd been on already. That's why it took so long. Sorry. All right, you're all right. Take your time. All right.
Lift your top.
Get that
pull your top down again, like that.
Right, I'm wearing this. Out the way.
Eventually, yes, we will make a living out of it, and it's lucky that we have the enterprise allowance for this year to give us time to get some money behind us.
What are you wearing? Have you been on with that yet? No.
Well, if you want to do what you enjoy and get paid for it, there's still plenty of chances because the government has allocated money for another 35,000 people
bats, that's these figures up here, are fiberglass models. The judges thought it was a stunning idea, and Rebecca Harrison, who's 7 and comes from Newark in Nottinghamshire, dreamed it up. Now, how did you get the idea, Rebecca?
I went to a circus.
You went to a circus and this gave you the idea. How long did it take you to do it?
3 days.
It's a lot of work. Can you remember what was the hardest part?
Doing the horse.
What was the hardest bit on the horse?
The bride.
That bit there. Well, I think you've done tremendously well. Many congratulations to you. We'll give you your prize in a moment while we've seen the other prize-winning ideas. Well done.
Well, here's the second prize-winning design in the 7 and Unders group. It's an ingenious giant water dome. And the idea is you walk under the giant fountains that arch over the path. The inventor of this is David Miller, who's 7½. He comes from Liss Forest. Well done, David. I think it was a really innovative idea. Where does the water go when it goes
to the edge?
Goes to the edge?
Yes.
And then what happens?
It's pumped back into the middle.
Oh, so it keeps going over and over again. That's really clever. I tell you what the judges liked particularly was the idea that when you walked around, there were loudspeakers playing water music. Smashing idea. What about the visitors getting wet, though? Do you think there's a bit of a strong wind they might get wet? You do? That was part of it, was it? Well, anyway, I think it was brilliant. Well done.
And now for the first prize in the 7s and Under section, and it's been won by this design, and it's a garden where you can touch and climb over everything. So all these flowers and seeds and vegetables drawn on here are made of things like rubber and foam and metal and plastic, and they're all gigantic too. And there's a key with it which explains what they all do. For example, it says here A is a giant tulip. And on the plan underneath, sure enough, there is a giant tulip. You climb up the ladder and slide down the pole a bit like a giant fireman's pole. So well done, Mary Ann Purvis, who's 7 and comes from Edinburgh. This is a lovely design. I really like this one. Which bit is your favourite?
I think it's the pea tendril.
Why is that?
Because I've never been on a helter-skelter, and I decided to make my own helter-skelter out of a pea tendril.
How does that one work?
Well, at the bottom you collect one of these wee cushiony peas and you climb up the stalk and then you slide down sitting on the cushion of the peas.
Oh, it sounds terrific fun. I'd like to have a go on that too. Congratulations, Marianne.
Thank you.
Me too. That sounds brilliant, doesn't it? Moving on to the next age group now, and that's the 8s, 9s and 10s. And the third prize-winning design in this section was a garden games compendium, would you believe? The way this works is the whole of the Blue Peter plot is a huge board game. You can see this, and you walk round it, and it comes complete with a dominoes bridge over here made out of fiberglass. Well, 9-year-old Ben Dudley of Sutton Coldfield had this very original idea. Can you tell me, Ben, how you play this?
Well, first you go through the gates, then you go across this terrace, and then you cross the bridge.
Yeah.
And then you throw a dice.
Yeah.
And you move along the game to do the finish. And there are notice boards on top of the game.
Yeah. Things like Jack stays, move on 6 places.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you go across the game. Then you go on these draft stepping stones.
That's across the water. That's clever.
Yeah.
And then you come to the finish.
Just come to the gate again.
Brilliant, very clever. And you're very clever at design because you've entered competitions before. You've got lots of badges there. Can you tell us what you've entered before?
Yeah. Well, that one is a cake competition.
Yeah. Still works.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that one is a cake competition as well. And that one is the last competition that Blue Peter did.
Yeah.
And this is this competition here.
Fantastic. Very well done. Many congratulations on using your imagination so well. Well done, Ben.
Well, here's another games idea. This time it's a computer garden. It's won 2nd prize, and this is an inflatable computer to bounce on, and all the visitors, as they come through the entrance there, get beamed up onto a large screen behind it. Rory Lowe, who's 8, who comes from Bury St Edmunds, dreamed the whole thing up. Hello, Rory. What happens with the numbers? How do they work?
Well, nothing much, but you can climb up them and slide down on someone, and you can go inside them upstairs and look at the top of them.
Oh, so it's the sort of thing to play on, sort of thing.
Yes.
And you've got an abacus there, and you've got some computer games. I suppose people can play on them as well.
Yes, you can play on the computer games.
That's great. I mean, it's just, really appropriate for the 1980s, isn't it? Well done.
And now for the first prize-winning idea in the 8s, 9s and 10s section, and it's a Blue Peter birthday garden, which couldn't be more appropriate this year. It's like a colossal It's a Knockout garden, really, because it's full of the most amazing games, which are all designed to make you fall about, like the bun bounce in the middle here, where you bounce from bun to bun, trying to stay on them all the time. Harriet Johnson, who's 9½, and comes from Kelso, sent us this garden plan. It's very clever. How on earth did you think of it?
Well, after tea when we just finished watching the programme when you told us about it, we were arguing if it was your 20th or 25th birthday, and we decided from the birthday, that we'd make something to do with it, and so we decided about the party.
What about the bun bounce? Because that's not the first thing that comes to mind, really, is it? How do you think of that one?
Our chairs in the study, we bounce on them, you see.
Does your mother know about that? That's loud, is it? I like the way you've given alternative suggestions as well, in case some of your ideas are too expensive. That's very practical, and I'm sure everybody visiting that would have a lot of fun. Well done.
And on we go to the final section, which is incidentally the oldest as well. This is the 11s to 16s, and the third prize-winning design here is the Garden of Danger. And danger refers to all the different insects and plants here in danger of becoming extinct. Well, as you can see, the garden's full of these huge mushrooms, and they actually act as umbrellas and shelter the displays. And what's really terrific about this is that each one has a sighted side, that's this one here, and a blind side with exhibits that blind people can actually touch and feel and enjoy. I think that's brilliant. Well, 13-year-old Cinnamon Hazard of Woodley near Reading has worked it all out. Are you particularly worried, Cinnamon, about different insects and plants becoming extinct?
Yes,
Right, now can you tell me how you had your idea for blind people?
well, I'd never actually seen a garden that had a special part for blind people, and so I thought it might be a nice idea to do something specially for them.
Well, well done. I think it's a wonderful idea. I would love to see that made one day. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so would I. Well, another very detailed idea has won the second prize in this section. It's a picnic. There's a lawn tablecloth up here, and each plate is a separate play area. And Janet and Simon and I have got our own plate, and Goldie has one, and Jack's got a plate too. And Jack's plate is a fish loaded on springs that children can bounce about on. The inventor is 13-year-old Sarah Gutteridge from Stoke-on-Trent, who has won second prize in our Lord Mayor's cake competition. Well done, Sarah. Tell me about the knives and forks. What are they all about?
Well, these are like raised flower beds with a wall round, with flowers in the middle, so that adults, while the children are playing, can rest.
Ah, so it gives the mums and dads a good rest. I think a picnic idea is really appropriate for a garden festival, because people need, well, the mums and dad need a place to go and have a rest, don't they? Well done.
And the winner of the first prize in the oldest age group came up with a dragon. And what's more, you can walk all over him too, because he's made out of earth, like a hill, with a painted concrete head. And the artist has drawn him both from the top and from the side, so you get a really good idea of what he looks like. You walk in through his mouth here, and then along his back, and down his back right leg, which would be great fun. And the person who came up with this eye-catching idea is Theodore Anderson, who's 14 and lives near Cambridge. Have you ever seen anything like this, Theodore?
No, I haven't seen anything like it, but I like drawing dragons and I like gardens, so I thought I'd combine them and make it into a dragon
It is a good
garden.
combination. I tell you the thing that worries me, if we do have a particularly bad summer, do you think it would stand up to torrential rain?
Well, if it's planted well and it's only meant to last for 6 months, I should think it will.
Yes, that's true. That's a good point. They wouldn't trample it underfoot and turn it into mud. Well, I think it's a smashing idea. It's one of my favourites. I really like this steam train coming in here. I think you get a really good view from there as well. Well done. And well done to all the other prize winners as well.
Yeah, well done. I hope you all enjoy your special VIP visits to the International Garden Festival.
Yeah, many congratulations. Now then, there's just one more announcement to make, and it's a very important one. Out of all these top designs, the judges had to choose just one to be built on the Blue Peter site at the plot at the festival. It's a very difficult decision to make because we found that the standard of the competition was particularly high, but in the end we did make our decision.
And the winner of the Blue Peter Festival Garden Competition is Theodore Gare Anderson. Well done.
Hey!
Congratulations, Theodore.
Many congratulations.
It is a lovely design, this.
Very well done.
Your face beamed.
Yeah, I think your dragon is tremendous. And someone else who does is the man who is our chief judge. Meet Rodney Beaumont, because Rodney, meet Theodore. He is the man who will make your dragon come alive.
Yes, we've been thinking about it for the last couple of days, and it's going to be quite a challenge for us to turn that from an idea into a reality in 9 weeks. But I think we will excite people when we achieve it. I was going to ask Theodore a question, actually. I take it, Theodore, that you want people to actually come through the head, up onto the top, and down the back.
Yes, that's right.
And what was your reason for that?
Well, I thought it'd be better than just walking around it. I thought it'd be quite exciting walking over the top.
So really you want to have a play mound, a play dragon? And that's really, I think, one of the reasons why it won, because it's three-dimensional, it's exciting, it's colourful, and you're encouraging other children to participate. And it's going to have to compete anyway with the big yellow submarine and a jam garden next door. So we'll make every attempt to make sure that it's the best, and one of the best designs in the festival.
Yeah. Well, I must say on this one, all 9 judges were absolutely unanimous.
Up with the hands like that.
That's right.
So very well done. We'll be back on Thursday, and you'll be climbing, won't you, Peter?
Yes, I shall be climbing, yes. I shall be climbing up a 100-foot of sheer ice face with a man called Doug Scott. You remember Doug Scott? He was the man who climbed up the southwest face of Everett, and Everett, Steve.
Kenny or the mountain?
And I'm making a Valentine's card for you to send to your true love on Valentine's Day next week.
Oh, how sweet.
Rumours.
Well, we'll see you on Thursday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Singapore as well. Liverpool first, then Singapore.
Yeah.
So
that will be made of earth, won't it?
I hope so.
We should go out and watch the face of that being built, won't we?
And these are tomorrow's programmes for children on BBC One. The Magic Roundabout is set into motion at 3:50, and Sheila Gilby's guest in Play School at 3:55 is Don Spencer. There's another encounter with a killer shark for Tintin and his friends at 4:20, and in Grange Hill at 5:10, there's the return of that well-known character, Gripper. Well, starting on BBC Two in a minute, there's this evening's Charlie Chan mystery with Sidney Toler trying to solve the identity of a dangerous saboteur in Panama.
The Jane Torville and Christopher Dean story started here a few years ago at the Nottingham Ice Rink. Their dedication to their sport has gained them British, European and world titles. Their breathtaking routines have thrilled millions, and now they go for gold at the Winter Olympics. We tell their story and talk to the people behind the scenes of the most successful partnership in ice dancing ever, in A Row of Sixes.
And A Row of Sixes begins at 6:50 this evening on BBC One Midlands. Now look at the headlines in the Midlands today. Following the murder of the Indian diplomat whose body was found in Leicestershire, the Home Secretary this afternoon promised to review the security of Foreign Embassy staff. Thousands of acres of land are underwater in the East Midlands. Nottinghamshire's Chief Constable has defended the 2-week anti-drink drive campaign in which nearly 40,000 motorists were breath tested, but only 59 proved positive. Now on 160 Minutes.
Tonight's 60 Minutes headlines. The fighting spreads in Beirut and the city is put under total curfew. The kidnapped Indian diplomat is found murdered. Security is tightened for his colleagues. The government has second thoughts on the cuts in housing benefits. And thousands of cage birds are slaughtered to try to stop a killer disease. Hello, as well as the news this 60 Minutes, the fear tonight that grips the city of Beirut as families huddle and the world around them crashes. Is there nothing now that can save them from a bloodbath? And how soon will the British peacekeepers be plucked out of the danger? The news tonight is read by Maura Stewart.
Fierce fighting has been going on all day in Beirut. Despite a curfew, with the Lebanese army threatening to shoot on sight anyone who broke it, anti-government militias have been fighting for control of large parts of the city. For the first time for several months, Muslim West Beirut came under attack and was heavily shelled. There were many casualties. Shiite militiamen drove the Lebanese army from several points back into East Beirut. Keith Graves is in the city.
It happened without warning. During the morning, the shelling of Christian East Beirut had continued unabated. Then suddenly it spread to West Beirut. Gunmen appeared on the streets of the predominantly Muslim area, so far relatively untouched by the past 5 days of fighting. They exchanged fire with the Lebanese army. An immediate curfew was imposed over the whole city, and then the shells started pouring into the western part of Beirut. They're still coming in now. Presumably the army are trying to flush out the Muslim gunmen. They're hitting apartment blocks and shops. The whole city is now under fire. Nowhere is escaping, from the presidential palace to the refugee camp slums. There's been fierce fighting around the British Army base, though no reports of anyone injured, and around the British Embassy, where 2 American Marine Guards have been wounded. The situation seems to be deteriorating by the hour.
And in the Commons this afternoon, MPs were told that Britain is consulting its partners in the multinational force in Lebanon following the latest fighting in Beirut. But the Foreign Office Minister, Mr. Richard Luce, said the government does not intend to withdraw the 100-strong British contingent precipitately. He said it would not be right in the extremely grave situation to take a rapid, panic decision. For Labour, Mr. Dennis Healey said the lives of British troops were being put at risk unjustifiably. He said the contingent should be withdrawn immediately. The government's announced greater protection for Indian diplomats in Britain following the murder of Mr. Ravindra Mahatre, who was kidnapped last Friday by a group calling itself the Kashmir Liberation Army. Mr. Mahatre's body was found late last night, about 20 miles from where he'd been abducted. He'd been shot. Announcing the increased security, the Home Secretary, Leon Britton, said the government was determined to stand firm against terrorists and their violence. Mrs. Thatcher, who spoke of her horror at this appalling act, has sent a message of sympathy to the Indian Prime Minister, Mrs. Gandhi. She has called it a cowardly and brutal outrage. Mr. Mahatre's body was found by a couple returning to their farm outside Hinckley. He'd been dumped in the driveway. Michael Cole reports.
Red Hill Farm is 400 yards from the M69. The farmer's wife, Mrs. Joyce Tallis, saw something lying in the drive as she and her husband drove home at 10 last night. Police were called and later confirmed that it was the missing diplomat. He'd been shot dead. He'd been lying in the drive for up to 2 hours, but may have been murdered elsewhere and dumped. At daylight, a search began for leads to his killers. Mr. Mahatre was last seen alive as he got off a bus near his home on Friday evening. He was attacked by 3 or 4 men, probably Asians, and bundled into a car which sped off without lights. Mr. Mahatre resisted, and the struggle was witnessed by a man who's given the police a description and a young woman the police are still trying to trace. At Mr. Mahatre's home, his widow, who's under sedation, and their 14-year-old daughter were visited by the Indian High Commissioner to Britain. Indian diplomats in London do get armed police protection, but until today, those in the provinces weren't thought to be so vulnerable to terrorist attack. Key personnel at the Indian consulate in Birmingham are now getting special protection. Mr. Mahatre was a career diplomat whose main job was stamping passports. Birmingham has a substantial Kashmiri community. Feelings about their divided homeland run deep, but generally, feelings of revulsion at this murder run deeper still. Several people, some Kashmiris, some not, are being interviewed by police, who confirmed that the only possible motive for Ravindra Mahatre's murder was the violent politics of the Vale of Kashmir.
The latest satellite from the American Space Shuttle Challenger seems to have been launched successfully. The launch ends a run of bad luck for NASA. 2 days ago, a similar satellite worth £50 million was lost, and yesterday a manoeuvring experiment was ruined when a balloon disintegrated. Our science correspondent, James Wilkinson, reports.
It was a tense time for mission controllers. They lost the last satellite, and when they did eventually find it, it was in the wrong orbit and useless. The launch of the Indonesian satellite had to go right. In the event, it did. It was spun on its platform and then released. Later, it fired its engine, which was to place it in an orbit 22,500 miles high. So, one of the shuttle's customers at least is happy with this mission. NASA have also released pictures of yesterday's abortive balloon launching. A canister containing the balloon to be used for a practice rendezvous was ejected from the payload bay. But then Bruce McCandless gave the bad news.
John, it looks like the balloon blew up. I'm tracking a very large piece of plastic.
Despite the upsets, all is now set for tomorrow's promised space walk, when the astronauts will float free in space for the first time.
The government has decided to modify its plan to cut about £240 million from housing benefits. The original proposals ran into strong backbench opposition. The Social Services Secretary, Norman Fowler, told the Commons this afternoon that the cuts would now be up to £40 million less. This would mean an average weekly loss of 70 pence instead of 96 pence for those eligible for benefit.
These changes have to be paid for. The money will come from delays in the children.
And day or half-day boat trips are what most people enjoy.
The Scilly Isles are in fact a whole scattering of islands, more than 100 of them, some 28 miles from Land's End.
Tresco, which we leave behind in our wake, is one of 5 inhabited islands, and it's only half the size of the main island, the island of St Mary's. Now this is where most people come to stay. They arrive either by ship from Penzance, that takes 2.5 hours, by helicopter, or by the air services from Newquay, Plymouth or Exeter. On St Mary's is the capital, Hewtown, and it's from this harbour the flotilla of sightseeing boats leave for the other islands. It has 2 beaches, one on either side of the main road 100 yards apart. But other than this, what do you do here? Well, not much really. Sea trips, walking, a little golf, and the evening slide shows. But then those who stay in Hewtown's 5 hotels and many guest houses aren't exactly looking for excitement. If they are, Vic's Tours will certainly supply that for them. Ron is the driver guide on this 32-year-old coach. The trip costs 90 pence and lasts about an hour.
Heavy transport behind us. If you smack her bottom, she goes better, Mrs. George.
You cover 6.5 miles, and that's nearly all the metal road there is. But Ron is a fount of all knowledge.
On the left, Mr. Pierce, a wood carver. He's a wonderful man with a knife, never attacked a lady yet.
In a way, this tour epitomizes the Isles of Scilly. Charmingly parochial, uncrowded, unhurried, far, far from any madding crowd, and like its climate, mild and gentle, warm and welcoming.
So now I know what the attractions of the Isles of Scilly are. If you would like any information about them, write to the Tourist Information Centre, Town Hall, St Mary's, Isles of Scilly, TR1 OLW. The Tourist Information Centre, Town Hall, St Mary's, Isles of Scilly, TR1 OLW. And don't call them, as I did on one occasion in that film, the Scilly Isles. They don't like it very much, and it's inaccurate. No competition this week. That ended last Sunday, but how are things going, John?
Oh, they're going very well, thank you. The entries are coming in by the sackful. Oh, I should apologise, though, to all the local librarians whose reference departments are apparently under siege. We've had some plaintive phone calls about that. As for the rest, remember the closing date is January the 28th. The winners will be announced on this programme on February the 5th.
And good luck, of course. Incidentally, John Carter's sleeping on the studio floor tonight because he's up early on breakfast television, breakfast time tomorrow, doing a holiday phone-in. But we'll all be back again next Sunday at 5 to 6. We'll take you on a cycling tour of Holland with Anne. I'll put on my shorts and show you Bermuda. And we'll be off on a coach tour around the Lake District. Until next Sunday, from us all, goodbye.
If you're in the market for a stately home or even a castle, the Money programme includes a report on a strange boom in the property market, which looks like producing some bargain buys. That's starting shortly on BBC Two. On BBC One, that's The Limit. Derek Griffiths has more advice on healthy drinking.
Good evening, Paddy. Evening, Thor. You just finished work? Yes, these damned high-heel shoes make it so difficult to walk in. Oi, what? Don't let him breathe on you. He'll take the enamel off your teeth. I'm terribly sorry about last night, Paddy, arriving here without any money. I'll settle up now. Did you keep a list? Oh, yes, sir. I have it right here now, sir. No, you started at 7.15. With a double scotch. You went on to 4 more double scotches, 2 pints of Guinness, a barley wine, 2 more double scotches, 2 glasses of wine, 3 double scotches, 1 glass of brake fluid, and 1 pint of bitter. No, at 7.20, you What's wrong with him? Is there something I've missed? Forget him, my son. He's still Brahms on list. Thank you.
When you go out drinking, it helps if you set yourself a limit. We asked lunchtime drinkers in a London pub if they ever thought about limits.
Not at